My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Saying community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. We just got done traveling to Arizona for their state conference. We grabbed a booth there, got to meet a bunch of folks, and it was so much fun, but it was hot. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It was hot when we left the Bay Area that morning, going to the airport around 10 a.m. It was already 70 degrees in the Bay, which is like weird. So then we were like, oh, we're dodging a little heat wave. Nope, there was no dodging. We landed in another. It was like 110 degrees in Arizona. Good thing the place we were staying at had a wonderful pool and air conditioners. So shout out to everyone in Arizona who put on that conference, put on such a great conference for the folks who are doing this job in Arizona. And I had a wonderful time vendoring and meeting a bunch of you. So if you did take a picture of me with me and got to meet me, throw it on my Instagram, Facebook. Would love to share it. And we'll see you guys at the next conference. My guest today has over 10 years of experience as a 911 dispatcher, a trainer, a supervisor, and a SWAT hostage negotiator. They are also the owner of Crisis IQ Training and Consulting. And we're going to dive into all that and so much more today with my guest, Robin. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully you avoided a heat wave last week, or were you stuck in one?
I just kind of stayed inside. I created AC.
Yeah, that's my game plan. Usually when it's too hot or too cold outside, it's just kind of hunker down, stay in four walls.
Oh.
Oh, we got a guest. Oh, man, that's funny. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into public safety.
So when I was a late teen, I worked at a hospital as a unit secretary. And all of the ER techs are commonly EMTs. So a lot of the ER techs would circle in and out of there, and they would go and work for EMS companies. So one of my friends who's an EMT told me that her company was hiring a dispatcher. And I was like, ooh, I want to answer 911. That sounds exciting. And I was thrilled. And then I went over there, and it wasn't for 911. It was for non-emergency transport. And I worked nights. I worked from like 6 p.m. To 6 a.m. And, Mima doesn't need to go to dialysis at 10 o'clock at night. So I didn't do anything. All I did was like lay around and watch TV all night.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to do something else. But, that resume point, I was able to apply for a 911 center and start over there. And then it was like a whirlwind.
And you were like, this is what I was looking for. This is what I was itching for while I was waiting for that dialysis transport. This was it.
Yep. And it was crazy. I had no idea like what 911 really was. I was that person who thought that, they were just in there answering the phone and getting the exciting calls and making coffee. And yeah, I was surprised.
What was that learning curve for you like? Because I think when you're in this for so long, you kind of forget like a time where when you don't understand the realities of 911, like before you were indoctrinated into this line of work.
I've tried to always like hold on really tightly to the feelings that I had when I was in training. Because as a trainer, I had to pull back so many times and be like, I don't want to give anyone an expectation that I don't think that they can actually meet. And you have to like keep your empathy for these new kids because it's so much information. And like at my agency, we're call takers and dispatchers like combined. So you're doing it all like from jump. And I remember training and having to learn like, I don't know, 200 police codes. And then being in the center, and I was training during the day, and there was so much noise, just like constant bells and routers and phones and everything else going on, that when I would drive home at the end of my shift, I couldn't even listen to the radio. I was so like overstimulated from all the noise.
That is totally thing. I'm working like a 3 to 3 right now. So I'm getting off work and getting home around 3:30 in the morning. And if it was a day, it takes a while to just kind of decompress and really just allow your brain to shut off, because the reality is you're got to go to work again tomorrow, 9 times out of 10, so getting to sleep quickly is helpful for the rest of your work week. But yeah, that destimulation, especially if it's a wild work night, it takes a little while. It takes a little training to figure out how to turn that off quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, it's funny that you mentioned the type codes and the abbreviations and stuff is I had a webinar this week. I do my monthly I'm back in the process webinar for folks who have questions about our process or whatever. And they were asking like, oh, if I get this offer, what's the advice for training? And my advice always is ask for those codes because even if you don't know the context behind them or like be able to use what they actually are in a full sentence, memorizing them is half the freaking battle. You can get the context later.
Right. Absolutely.
So what did the training look like for you? You guys were just on the floor training, or did you have an academy type setup?
No, we were on the floor training. I didn't actually get sent to BCO until I was already like on the floor working independently. So by the time there was like a BCO class for me, I was like way from what they were teaching me in BCO. There were 6 dispatchers on my shift. And I kind of got passed around, like each one would teach me something different. And the way our phones worked then, the 911 calls and the non-emergency calls would come in with like a different ring. So you knew which was which. There. But then you could have your trainee answer the non-emergency calls. And so first day they had me answering non-emergency calls, and like, I never knew like what was urgent and what was not. Like somebody would tell me a story and I'd be like, oh my God. And then I'd look at the trainer and she'd be like,
did you ever pick up a non-emergency and you're like, oh, no, you really should have called 911 for this?
Well, I had a trainer who was sitting with me who, again, like we could be on the line together, which was really ideal. And they got rid of that pretty quickly after I started. So your recruit, if they are like really driving around, you have to like snatch their headset off their head and put it on your head. Like, this is God, I'm here to help. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. It was kind of cool. Like from a trainer's perspective, like the girl who was really good at records and NCIC stuff, she's me in that. And then the girl who's really good on Maine, she's the one who trained me in that. So I liked having a bunch of different trainers and I got different perspectives. I didn't get bored because I was like learning, and it helped me learn the people on my shift. But now a lot of times like the new hire, the recruit gets put with the trainer, and then that's who you're with for like 8 months here. And that's such a grind for both trainer,
Yeah. I mean, I remember the same thing with you, like you get to learn the way, because there's 1,000 ways. What's the saying? 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Like, is that this, like this job? There are 100 different ways to enter things into the system. There's 100 different ways to voice things. And all fall within policy, but everyone just does things differently. So being able to switch up your trainer throughout this process, as well as being able to, as the trainer, have new folks is super refreshing. Because I know I talked a little bit about it in a reel a little while back, because like our trainers are tired as well. Sometimes they just want to come in there and do their job by themselves, not worry about nobody, don't want to teach nobody something, So
hard.
Yeah.
Constantly have someone underfoot. And I really believe in like taking frequent breaks, that how good that is for retention. So when I was like a supervisor, the trainer that was on my shift, I would have to remind her, I'm like, hey, you need to be giving your recruit breaks and blah, 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 blah. And there was this one break at 9 p.m. and I saw that they were still working over there. And I went over and was like, hey, it's time for the 9 o'clock break. And the trainer was like, oh, she said she doesn't need one. And I was like, it's for you, babe.
Don't come over here making me feel special now.
You get to take a break too. Like, would you like outside and smell some air, or like have to be able? Because when I was a trainer, I think the most is I had 14 recruits back to back. It was tough. It was very tough.
I definitely think that is one of our toxic traits as dispatchers, is especially in these smaller centers where it's you, one other person, and if you're lucky, a third, we do not leave our console. It's very hard for us to just get up and walk away. I think it's easier in larger centers, not that the call volume isn't more ridiculous, but there's more people in the room, so your guilt doesn't, doesn't sit on you. But it was just me and my partner, 6 p.m., it's like leaving them is leaving them,
Right.
And even with 3, like, oh, they're about to get slammed for a little bit. So that is one of our toxic traits. We do need to take breaks, and we need to create environments that people feel like they can go take a break and not leave folks hanging,
Absolutely.
So how was your experience transitioning from the public sector dispatching to being a corporate trainer?
I had really, after 10 years, I was ready to be good. I had been on nights almost exclusively the entire time. So that's 10 years of 6P to 6A. I worked a ton of overtime. We had unlimited overtime, and you could work, 14, 15, 16, 12s in a row if you wanted to.
Jeez.
There was no cap on it. So those who like to grind, who like to go on vacation, who like to buy purses, I don't know, would always be in there. And like, you don't realize how it's affecting you. You really don't like keep an eye on your own like mental health. But it was like a light switch. Like one day I woke up and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I was so neutral at work always. I was like, oh, it's a work day. But all of a sudden I was like, I can't live like this. But I was like, I've been in this industry forever. Like, how am I going to make my skills translate? So I did some looking on Reddit to see like what other people were doing. And eventually I just put something on my Instagram. I was like, who of my friends, like who loves your job? Who's really loving what they do? And my friend Julie hit me up, and she's a corporate trainer. And the irony is that she was my first main PD radio trainer at my agency. And he had left maybe like a year into me working there, and we had just changed like casual friends.
Mm.
And she hit me up and she was like, I can totally get you an interview here. And the training that I do now is for it's software training for like electric cooperatives, the accounting side of that. So like it's niche. I don't know anything about accounting. They're not going to hire me. And she's like, you know how to sell an interview. Like, I really think you can do it. Just sell yourself as a trainer, not as 911 specific.
You learn 911, you can learn anything. So,
so that's it. I went in and interviewed, and my now boss was very like impressed with all of my stuff I was talking about training, and she took a chance on me, and it was great. And all of a sudden I had a cushy 9-to-5 corporate job, 2 days in the office, 3 at home. It's salary, thing is overtime. They throw free stuff at us all the time. It's like such a nice, like happy little environment. And if you don't come from dispatch, like that might sound normal, but it's not normal. But it's cool. But then after I was there for a while, I was like, I have so much of this 911 negotiating. I was also the tactical dispatch team lead, and I helped create that unit at my agency. So I have like policy writing experience, all of this stuff that's very specific to 911. And I was like, I do miss the job. I don't on the floor.
Yeah.
But I do miss it. And so I'm like, I have so much that I could teach people that would be helpful from my years there. Training company.
That's amazing. And I mean, a few things to take away from that is, like when it's your time, it's your time, like whatever that looks like for people, I think that another toxic trait that we have is like, we never want to leave 911, right? Like we love it. It's so unique. It's so like when it's in you, and then it's hard to walk away. But we also have to listen to ourselves when, our body, our mind, our spirit is telling us it's time to exit, like listen to that and figure out what's next. And it's okay, if you only put in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc. Like whatever amount that you provided to this service, to that community is appreciated, right? Like don't be afraid to walk away if you're feeling like you're reaching that point for whatever reason.
Right.
And it's so wonderful that you were able to transition and find something nice, something, a place to recover from what we do in this line of work.
Yeah, so nice. There was actually, I was still technically like going through training at my software job, and I was teaching on Zoom, maybe like 6 or 7 clients how to do something, and the system went down. And so I'm like in the middle of talking, and then the system went down, and I was like, oh, it looks like the system went down. Let me see what's going on. And so I look over on Slack. I see that they're working on it, and they're like, it should be up in a minute. And I was like, it shouldn't be down that long. And I was like, so let's entertain ourselves. It was a joke. Or inappropriate. But I was just talking to these clients, and then the system came back up, and I was like, oh, anyway, back to what I was saying. Rolled with it. And my boss pulled me aside, and she was like, I can't believe you didn't panic. She's like, that would have sent so many of our trainers into like an absolute tailspin. And I'm like, none of this is real. Job is made up.
That's funny. And that's so true. Like cat goes down, we're writing on cards, like these, don't lose this card. It matters,
Like praying no one calls, because you're only getting like 50% of my best if you call right now with these cards,
Oh my gosh, exactly. Yeah, my handwriting's atrocious. I think I was a doctor in a past life or something, because it's not readable at all.
She's just like, oh my God, I can't believe that didn't throw you. And I'm like, this doesn't even feel real to me. Like they cannot make me feel a sense of urgency. Like, I have deadlines and I meet them and it's not a big deal, but I can't find it in me to like stress about meeting a deadline about my staking sheet software. You know? Like, and I think that's such a healthy relationship to have with my work. Like, it's very important to me to do a good job, but to be able to make a living and like go to work and not have that like amygdala constant like hitting of the roller coaster of the calls that you get and what's going on in the shift. And you know, I'm here and I have 10 years experience, but the 3 other people in this room, you know, none of them have one.
Yeah.
And we got to keep this going. We were also working supervisors. So I still had to take a channel.
Yeah.
So it was really hard I couldn't listen in on anybody's calls. I essentially had to work the main PD radio because that was the only way I could filter everything that came in. So it was an impossible task.
Yeah, the ability to do so many things, the job, right? And then the tasks that you have as a supervisor. I think sometimes it's easy for folks who are on the front line not doing supervisor work to be like, what are they even doing? You know? But there is a lot that goes into running a center and managing people in a business essentially that is outside of the realm of just answering 911. So having to do all that and work a channel is impressive, to say the least.
It's very, very hard. And they always said that they would try to get away from that to where the supervisors didn't have to take a channel. I'm sure, as you know, understaffing is just epidemic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's such a wild reality that a lot of centers are currently operating. And, you know, I've been pretty vocal that I have truly benefited from shift work. I have very rarely been forced in or mandated. I have this weird, knock on wood, every agency I work at so far while I'm there has been fully staffed. So
that's
like, it's not normal. B, it is one of the benefits of shift work when it's working right, you know? Yeah. But the reality is a lot of our centers don't have that. And I think we're starting to get to a place where people are going like, how can we actually make this better? You know, because I think that we're, as departments in general, are in the mindset that everybody wants to work for us. And I'm like, that's not the reality anymore. You know, we have 1,000 positions and 2 people applying, whereas before it was we have 2 positions and 1,000 people applying. And I think it's hard for people to get out that mindset. Like, we're trying to recruit the D1 athletes right now and we're not acting like it, you know, like we have to have that shift and we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. Tough. Recruitment is so tough. Plus, like I was just reading an article talking about the tenure of a dispatcher and how it was like 5 years and then it went down to 3 and now it's like between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
People
they're dipping their toe in and they're going, there's piranhas in there. Why would I want to be in there?
Especially because we have this like globalized world market, you know, like with like working from home, you can work for a company that's based in Tennessee. So now, you know, you have so many other jobs that you can apply for, and working for 911, I genuinely think is one of the hardest jobs ever. And people come and they're like, wait, I don't have to do something that's this hard and puts this much pressure on me to never make a mistake. There's so many lives in the balance. You're spinning so many plates. It can be so daunting. But if you have the right kind of spirit for it, it's rewarding and it's fun. Like, when it's busy and you're on your A game, especially if you're on your A game and there's someone else in the room who's on their A game.
Oh yeah, it's a whole vibe for sure.
such a mood, and that you guys are just like, we got this so hard. And it's so much fun because you love the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true. And I mean, that's one of the realities of this job. It's something that I talk about in one of my sessions is like retention starts at the application process. You know, this world where we bring trainees in and we just kind of tell them to suck it up and deal with it, and we treat them poorly, or make them feel isolated, or tell them they're not going to make it, or no one needs to stay for that. There's no investment. Like, I've been here for 2 minutes, you treated me like crap. Why? I'm already job searching, right? Like, if that's my first week of work, like, I'm already job searching, you know, and that retention starts at the moment that the application's received, even before we're giving folks conditional offers, you know. So the mindset needs to change. You know, the job is tough. We make it a lot tougher just from the way we're managing things. So, but hopefully we're making, you know, positive changes, you know, fingers crossed.
Yes, I hope so.
But you took all your experience and created Crisis IQ training and consulting. So tell us about that, what that looks like, and what you folks are offering over there.
So I found that as I was going through my own career, I would take my classes through Post or through APCO or whoever to get my certification to be a tactical dispatcher, to be a supervisor, to be a trainer, whatever. And of course, the classes are like, you know, the CTO class is like different people learn different ways. Like, you know, or you take a stress class and it's like, this is the definition of stress and this is the definition of eustress. And you're just kind of like, okay, you know, which they kind of have to be standardized like that. But after I got my certifications, there was like this huge gap where I was like, well, what do I take now? And I was looking for training because I do believe in constantly training. Like, you should never rest. There's always someone out there who knows more or who experienced something different, who wants to share that. And I think that's just so important. But there was almost nothing out there. And so I was like, someone should make a company. And so, yeah. So, I offer classes that are not certification classes, but get to like the real raw situation. And I just left 911 in August of last year. So these are recent from the floor examples of stuff. Like in my supervision class, like we'll talk about what to do when the people in your shift cannot get along, or what to do when those hard talks that you have to have, like how to talk to someone about a hygiene issue, how to figure out the motivations that each person on your crew has so you can try to inspire them to be more ambitious or to take the job more seriously, or, you know, things like that, things that like really actually happened. Like, it's shocking when you think of, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the supervisor, like all the pressure is going to be on me. But really, like, the biggest part of the job was like hurt feelings from people on the shift, and you had to like figure it out. Oh, I also talk about promoting in place, challenges, the unique challenges of that, where you're one of the city girls and you guys are all together and you're tight, and then your supervisor leaves and you get promoted, and now you got to lay the law down sometimes. Your friend.
You know, it's interesting that we're talking about this, because I think this is something that comes up often in our field in general. Is we promote people, but we don't necessarily provide them training or guidance on how to be in this new role. You know, a lot of times in 911, you got years on and you move up, and which is wonderful. But then management just expects them to know how to manage. And it's like, well, that actually does not work that way. It has to be very intentional. It has to be taught the same way answering 911 does. So I think we do a disservice to our supervisors and folks in these leadership roles when we don't offer them training, and like when we assume like, oh, they're a supervisor, they should know how to have a conversation about XYZ. And internally they're freaking out and they're like, I've never had this conversation before. Like, how do I do this? I know when I was a manager, when I was a social worker, we would role play any tough conversations we were going to have that week. So we would all be in our little, management meeting, and they would ask like, oh, does anybody got like a write-up, a coaching, whatever coming up? And then we would literally role play to prepare. So we're actually like, we're intentional with the leadership. We're intentional with the conversation. And, at the end of the day, it's to provide that guidance and make sure it doesn't happen again. But like, how do we do that successfully with people that we're with 24/7 in this line of work?
Yeah, it's tough. And role playing is such a good tool.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many like conversations out there that really need to be had. And that you're not going to get through like a state sponsored training. So I have a class for supervisors. I have a class for trainers. I have an advanced call taking class. My agency was like Tri-ACE certified. We used EMD, EPD, EFD.
HIJK.
And so you're very structured in how you can take calls.
Yeah.
A lot of people would take calls within that structure and then get off the phone and they're like patting themselves in the back like, oh, I passed that one.
Yeah.
But there's actually so much more you can do like within the structure, the protocols, and there's different places that you are allowed to like freelance without getting points taken off. So but you need someone to teach you how to do that, not get dinged on your calls while still being able to be a better like investigator on the phone. And if you're asking questions, you're sending such a better response. And and I also talk about in there being aware of the room, like what else is going on. Let me tell you, I was working an extra one night. The supervisor was actually training a recruit because the trainer was out. And so it was those two, me, and then this other lady. And the other lady, bless her heart, old Southern lady in the corner, she gets this call and it's like 5:40 in the morning. Pretty unusual time to get anything other than a medical call. And so she's like, I can't understand you. I can't understand you. And she goes, you said he's killing you? And there's like a pause. And then she goes, he's killing you with a knife? And so
what's the address?
I turn around and I look over my shoulder. I'm not even listening to a channel. I'm just there to help call take. I turn around and I'm like looking in the room. No one else has even looked up. The supervisor is playing Candy Crush. The recruit is doing like, I don't know, nothing. Anything. And so I was like, hey, supervisor, I said, you might want to get some people started to that call because it takes a few minutes if you're using the protocols, but the address is in the call. Like, you can send people early if you want to before the call drops.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need to send someone to this. And she's like, oh, what's going on? And then she gets to her computer and she starts like looking at it. And I'm like, just trust me. Just
start someone.
And later.
Yeah.
She's still trying to figure it out. So I like drop some tones and I'm like, anybody in the area start for this, we're figuring it out, but it's violent and it's happening now.
Yeah.
And the girl who's taking the call, she ended up dropping it as a domestic instead of a stabbing, which it was a stabbing.
Oh, wow.
And 3 people got stabbed. One of them died.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but she dropped it as a domestic, which doesn't spawn an EMS response.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so everybody's like going to this call, like every cop in the city, and you know,
Mhm.
and then I'm looking around and I'm like, who's working medical? And she's like, oh, that's me. I was like, are you gonna drop a call?
Do you hear what's going on in here?
I was like, someone is stabbed. Please, love of God, send an ambulance.
Plates in the view. Jeez
Fire.
Louise.
Yeah.
Ah.
I was like, gosh, but like it's stuff like that that like
Mhm.
I don't know, you have to experience it to really understand like how important it is to have room awareness and
Yeah.
to not get into your bubble because you get off of work in 45 minutes and you're just trying to stay awake, you know?
It's true. I mean, honestly, it's something I've had to learn being at my new agency because we're so small.
Mm,
And back at, STAC, we were huge. Radio was on that side of the room and call taking was on this side of the room. So there was you got your call and you kind of pay attention to any hot calls going on in the sector, on your cat screen or whatever. But the city was so big and the room was so big, you were really allowed to kind of be in that bubble. You had whoever was in your pods back because you could hear them. But
right.
when I come to my new agency, it's me, especially by 5 a.m., it's me and one other person in the room. One
Mhm.
person on phones, one person on radio. So if I'm on radio and I hear them say that they're stabbing you, like, yeah, I'm already like raising people. Hey, we got a call mapping in this area. We're still getting further. Just start going that way.
Be close when
We'll let you know when we get more, but just, see if someone waves you down. See if, have your gloves ready. I don't know what they do to get prepared, but, but yeah, but I've had to learn that room awareness and I'm still getting better at it. It's still probably a fresher tool in my tool belt, but yeah, like hearing and you get to, it's kind of like when your officers escalate, right? You're like, they don't normally sound like that. Something's going on, like let's start him a cover even though he didn't ask. Things like that. You just learn, you need to be aware of your room, how your partners work and how your units work. So that's definitely a much needed course. So it's awesome that you're offering it as someone who's lived it. I think that's certainly one of the benefits about, courses taught, for us by us is that, there's a level of understanding that you get that we're dealing with in our centers currently that someone else trying to come in to teach who hasn't been a dispatcher doesn't fully understand.
Yes, it's such a unique job with its own challenges. I teach a mental health course that I think is important too. I teach a 911 center morale course. And part of the consulting part of the job is that I can come out to a center that's having, problems, nobody's happy, they can't retain anybody. I can come out there and check things out
Mm.
as a third party who knows what to look for and knows what to ask and try to help get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to be able to share these parts of it because some of them like I really feel like I'm like this is the key, like I promise you, like you really need to learn certain things. Like as a supervisor, you have to live and die on the hill that this will be a pleasant environment for us.
Mhm.
And that if you are coming in here and you are making it unpleasant for everybody else, then you don't get to stay.
Mhm.
And you do have, you need to own your power there.
Mhm.
As a trainer or as a supervisor, you need to know what you can do. Like, yeah, I can't, be like, you're fired, get out. But I can send her home for the day.
Mhm.
I can have that conversation. I can get testimonials from other people on the shift and get them moved to a different shift where maybe they would fit in better.
Mhm.
There's so many things you can do. You don't have to accept a toxic environment because sometimes everything is fine and it's just one person that's like constantly bringing that darkness in there, and
Yeah.
your responsibility to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of, especially new supervisors, feel like the only thing they can do is send an email up the chain. And it's like, no, you can take the person off the floor and you can have a hard conversation with them. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I always felt like my role when I was in supervisor positions, like, is to protect my people, right? Like, now if my people go rogue, I can't help you that much there. If you go rogue, you out here wilding, whatever, I'm not going to be able to protect you. But if they're making decisions based on information I'm providing or based on information we're putting out as a agency that's unclear, gray area filled, like, that shouldn't be on my people that I'm managing. Like, I should be acknowledging that, taking that hit a little bit, and protecting our people. Like, if we're failing from the top down in some way, shape, or form, like, we as supervisors have to own that and fix that, and not let it just fall on the person we're managing because we failed in some way, shape, or form down the line. I think that's your first job as a supervisor: protect your people. Make sure they're following policy, of course, have the hard conversations. But if I don't feel like you have my back, like, the hard conversations are going to be really hard. There's going to be no, and we don't got to be best friends, but I want to be able to respect the folks who are providing supervision. If I don't think that your morals match mine, or that you just have a steady line of wanting to support me, that conversation is going to be really hard. Drew Clark was on here. He's actually assistant director, I think, now at his old agency. And he said, you have to be there for your people on blue sky days. So when it's all good, they got to see your face. So when it's bad and they see your face, they're like, okay, this person actually does care about me and is not just checking a box with whatever management they have to do that day.
Yeah, I had problems too, like with there were 4 of us, all girls, all had worked there for like a long time, and we were all really, really cool. We hung out outside of work, like we were the city girls. We always got along. Our shift was awesome. We never wanted anybody else to come work on our shift. They would disrupt our vibe, We're trying to vibe all night long. That's how we got the 12 hours. But one of the women on that shift was my best friend. And so when I became a supervisor, that dynamic I was kind of worried about. I'm like, this might be challenging, but we kind of naturally found our way through it, to where we would be, chopping it up all night, having a good time. But if she needed to talk to me about something serious when she came over, she would say, Supervisor Barton, SEO Lamison, like we would address each other by title, and that of like, hey, I'm serious about this. Like, this is a conversation that I'm trying to have. I'm not being jokey haha with you. This is real stuff. And so, like, immediately knew, don't try to make light of it. This is an expectation that I'm passing down. Expect you to comply to. So it was, you have to kind of come up with those ways to make sure that everybody's cool, but like, I'm not afraid to get in your butt.
Heck yeah, for sure. And I think, and that respect goes both ways. I think you're probably there for that person on those blue sky days. So when the supervisor comes out, you're like, they know you're going to have their back. They're now, like, it's a mutual thing. And I think what my fiance used to teach, or she got her undergrad in elementary education. And so she would used to like teach, and she'd go to these kids' events. And the one thing she said is, being a parent's tough, but the most important thing is just showing up, like physically being present. You might not be the best parent in that moment, but you're there. And that's what mattered most to the kids, is just like showing up, someone who was consistently showing up. And it's that simple in our centers, right? Even for our supervisor, like just showing up, being there, being intentional, being available. It goes such a long way, such a long way in these centers.
All the way up too, because
Mhm.
when I was a supervisor, my boss, I saw if I was getting written up or if I was receiving an award.
Yeah, those are the only times. If I'm only seeing, whoever's above my supervisor once in my 10-year career,
Yep.
that's a problem.
Supervisor, maybe once or twice a year. I
Mm,
saw the boss, the director who was above her, maybe once a year. And that's only if I was staying late talking to someone in the parking lot and he happened to like arrive and we would say
mm,
he passed. But like that's it. There was no
yeah.
other communication. We didn't have like weekly one-on-ones.
Mm,
Another thing like that can contribute to the toxicity of a center. The supervisors need to be meeting and talking without other management present.
yeah.
Like you guys, you have to calibrate your shifts.
Mm,
And you need to be able to talk to each other and be like, hey, this directive, obviously it's your job as a supervisor to sell whatever directive you're given to the people, whether you agree with it or not. You still have to give it to them and make sure that they comply with it. But then if you find out you're like, this isn't really working, you need to have conversations with the other shifts and be like, what's you guys' experience with this? Maybe
mm,
to work around, or, maybe it's not working for them either. And now we need to write a proposal for change, or
mm,
maybe they think it's the best and, it just turns out that it sucks on nights.
yeah.
But if that communication isn't happening, it's just awful.
It's true. It's one of those things like 911 is just one of those weird beasts where like everything's great in theory.
Mhm.
Everything is wonderful in theory. This is going to be great or people are going to love it. And then you throw it into the system and it's hard to do. It's hard to multitask with. You know, really getting feedback from your people and passing it up along, it does go a long way because everything truly is great in theory in this line of work.
Yeah.
Sometimes practice does not make perfect and implementing new things. Sometimes it just isn't a good implementation.
Right. Well, and people forget, like, you can always try something new and they just balk at that. And I'm like, I think we're forgetting the definition of try. Like, if we try it and we don't like it, we can go back to the old way. Or sometimes, like, your CAD system that you're using forever is
Mm,
no longer supported by that company. You
yeah.
have a new CAD system.
Mm,
It's not going to be exactly the same.
mm,
What use is there to fight that?
yeah.
Get on board from
Mm,
the floor. Be like, you know what? I think this is going to be hard for me to learn because I've been doing it the old way forever. Well, then you should be the one signing up for all the initial classes.
yeah.
The work, make your life easier for yourself. Don't just be like, what? Hey.
Well, speaking of signing up how do folks find your classes? How do they bring you out to their centers? How do they tune in?
So go to my website, www.crisisiqtraining.com. All of my classes, they're all live online, or you can do group in person. There's a contact button on there. My cell phone is listed, my email. I also have classes for non-911. I have 4 of those. So if you have any corporate friends, like I have a class that's 911 conflict management strategy for civilians. So anybody customer facing, you work for Delta, you work,
Spirit.
you work for a collection agency and you're fighting with people on the phone all day. let a hostage negotiator teach you how to do that. So I also have like a confidence boost class for the shy gals and girls who are, crying in the bathroom and boardroom. Like, let me help you have hard talks with people, because it is a learned skill. So anybody who's interested, or you think someone might want to, it's relaxed, it's fun. There's Daddy Georgia, Daddy California isn't, coming up with the curriculum. So it's free and it's a good time. So come see me.
Awesome. Well, Robin, thank you so much for being willing to jump on and share your journey, share your awesome training and consulting programs. I'm looking forward to learning more about it and sharing it with the people.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been so much fun.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that was another amazing episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, I love when people take what they've learned and their experiences in 911 and create something more with it that pours back into our blanking on words, pours back into our industry. So definitely check out Crisis IQ Training and Consulting. They are on Instagram. Check out their website, and we'll have all that information in the info section of this episode. Of course, if you're interested in jumping on, go ahead and head to theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time,